Chrono Trigger, Chapter 1, The Festival of the Millennial Fair. The morning sun spilled through the curtains of a modest cottage at the edge of Truce Village. Its warmth found a mop of untamed red hair, glinting like embers in the light. Chrono lay sprawled across his bed, dreams fading into the rhythm of seagulls calling from the distant shore. "Chrono! Chrono, get up!" His mother's voice rang from downstairs, melodic yet edged with impatience. He stirred, one eye opening reluctantly. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh bread and the faint tang of ocean salt. Somewhere beyond the hills, the banners of the Millennial Fair fluttered in the morning breeze. Today was no ordinary day, it was the 1000th anniversary of Guardia's founding, and the whole kingdom had gathered to celebrate. Chrono's mother greeted him with a smirk as he descended the stairs, hair even messier than usual. "You'll miss all the fun if you sleep your life away. And Luca's expecting you, she's been talking about her new invention for weeks." He tried to respond with words but instead produced a yawn that could have swallowed the morning whole. His mother shoved a small purse of coins into his hand. "Here, in case you want something from the vendors. And don't forget, try not to get into trouble." Outside, the streets were alive. Merchants called out their wares, from sizzling skewers of spiced meat to finely crafted jewelry. Children darted between stalls, laughing, faces sticky with candied apples. Minstrels strummed their lutes in the square, weaving music through the chatter of the crowd. Chrono walked toward the fairgrounds, enjoying the chaos, until a sudden jolt knocked the wind out of him. "Oh! I'm so sorry." The girl before him was unlike anyone he'd ever seen. Blonde hair framed her face, bright as sunlight, and her eyes held a kind of wonder that felt unguarded. She smiled nervously, brushing herself off. "My name's Merle. I hope I didn't hurt you." Her voice was warm, with an excitement that was contagious. She glanced at the pendant around her neck, a strange, intricate piece that glimmered faintly, and then back to him. "I don't know anyone here. Would you show me around?" Chrono found himself nodding before he could think. The two wandered the fair together, trying their hands at carnival games, tasting strange foods, even pausing to watch a troupe of dancers in flowing silks. With each shared laugh, Chrono felt a strange connection blooming, as if they'd known each other far longer than a few fleeting moments. Finally, they arrived at the center of the fairgrounds, where a crowd had gathered. Luca stood proudly beside her latest invention, two gleaming metal platforms connected by coils and humming machinery. "Step right up, folks. Witness the miracle of science, the telepod." Luca's assistant, Taban, waved dramatically. "Watch as we send objects, and people, from one pod to the other in the blink of an eye." Chrono, grinning, volunteered to go first. The machine thrummed, light crackled, and in a heartbeat, he appeared safely in the other pod. The crowd roared with applause. "Who's next?" Luca asked. Merle stepped forward, her pendant catching the sunlight. "I'll try." She handed the pendant to Chrono, but Luca waved it off. "You can keep it on, should be fine." The machine began its hum, but as the energy surrounded Merle, the pendant flared with blinding light. Gasps echoed through the crowd as a tear in the air itself appeared, a swirling gate of blue and white. Wind howled, pulling Merle toward it. "Chrono!" she cried, reaching out, but in a flash she was gone, swallowed by the vortex. Silence fell. Then Luca, wide-eyed, whispered, "That wasn't supposed to happen." Chrono didn't wait. Without a word, he grabbed the pendant and stepped into the swirling gate, chasing a girl he barely knew, into a time he couldn't yet imagine. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 2, A rift in time. The world dissolved into light. Chrono felt himself pulled forward, tumbling through a twisting tunnel of blue fire and streaking shadows. There was no ground, no sky, only motion and the relentless pull of something far beyond him. The air, if it could be called that, shimmered with fragments of unfamiliar landscapes, voices from nowhere, and a strange, rhythmic pulse like the beating of a heart. Then, with a sudden jolt, he hit solid earth. The wind howled past, carrying the scent of rain-soaked stone. Chrono rose unsteadily, brushing dirt from his tunic, and looked around. The sky was iron gray, clouds heavy with the promise of a storm. The festive sounds of the millennial fair were gone. Instead, the air was thick with tension. He stood at the edge of a forest, dense with dark pines and skeletal branches. In the distance, banners flapped, not the bright emblems of Guardia's festival, but torn flags depicting a crest he didn't recognize, a jagged black claw over crimson. Somewhere nearby, steel clashed against steel. Voices shouted in a tongue just different enough to sound foreign. Chrono tightened his grip on his sword and moved toward the sound. He found a dirt path winding toward a stone bridge. On it, armored soldiers struggled to hold their ground against figures cloaked in shadow, inhuman shapes with glowing eyes and twisted limbs. The monster's claws scraped sparks from the soldiers' shields. One soldier spotted Chrono. "You there?" "To arms, unless you're with them." No time to answer. One of the creatures lunged at him, its skin black and scaled, mouth lined with needle-like teeth. Chrono met it with a quick sidestep, blade flashing. The steel cut deep, and the creature collapsed into a heap that dissolved into smoke. The soldiers stared at him in awe. "Not bad for a stranger. But you should head to truce, the war's getting worse every day. The mystics are pushing hard." Chrono's brow furrowed. Mystics? War? None of this made sense. Truce Village, if that was still its name, was not the bustling, peaceful town he knew. The streets were quieter, the buildings older and rougher. Villagers spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting to the north where a looming castle rose against the stormy sky. He asked about a girl, blonde, wearing a pendant. The shopkeeper's eyes lit with recognition. The young lady who arrived this morning, the guards thought she was the queen herself. She's at Guardia Castle." "Queen?" Chrono's stomach nodded. He needed to see her. The castle gates were heavily guarded, but his skill with the blade, and perhaps a streak of luck, got him an audience. Inside, the great hall buzzed with unease. Courtiers whispered about the queen's recent disappearance and miraculous return. And there, seated near the dais, was Merle. Relief flooded Chrono until he saw her expression. She smiled when she saw him, but the moment their eyes met, something shifted. Her pendant glowed faintly. She staggered, clutching it. "Chrono. Something's wrong." Before he could reach her, her form began to flicker, not vanish instantly, but unravel, as if time itself was rejecting her. Gasps echoed through the hall as she let out a cry, her voice fading. And then she was gone. The courtiers panicked, voices overlapping. "She's vanished again. Is it the mystics? Is the curse upon us still?" A lone figure in green armor stepped forward, a man with a knight's bearing, though his helm was shaped oddly, like the head of a frog. His voice was deep, tinged with shame. "She is not the true queen," he said gravely. "If Lean is not found soon, the kingdom will fall." He looked at Chrono with eyes that carried both suspicion and curiosity. "Stranger, will you help me set this right?" Chrono nodded without hesitation. The knight extended a gauntlet hand. "Then call me Frog." Chrono Trigger, Chapter 3, the queen's disappearance. Rain had begun to fall, thin needles pricking the forest canopy as Chrono followed Frog down a twisting, root-choked path. The knight moved with a strange combination of grace and heaviness, his armored boots silent on wet leaves, his green cloak blending with the moss-dark trees. "You move well for someone out of armor," Frog said without looking back. His voice was calm, but edged with weariness. "Still, I wonder why you would risk your life for a woman you barely know." Chrono had no answer he could put into words. The truth was simple: when Merle had vanished, it felt like the world had punched a hole in his chest. Whatever force had taken her, he couldn't let it win. They reached a clearing where the air felt wrong, heavier, colder. The undergrowth here was clawed and blackened, as if scorched by some unnatural fire. At its center stood a small chapel, its wooden walls warped and leaning. Light bled faintly from its windows, though the panes were smeared with grime. "This is no house of prayer," Frog said quietly. "The Chancellor insists the Queen was seen here before she vanished. I smell magic." Inside, the scent of rot and damp incense clung to the air. A handful of robed women knelt before an altar, chanting in low, melodic tones. The moment they noticed the intruders, their eyes turned glassy, then slit-pupilled, and their forms shimmered. Flesh twisted, revealing hunched, spindly creatures with talons and fanged grins. "Welcome, meddling fools," one hissed. "You won't leave here alive." The fight was chaos. One creature lunged at Chrono, claws scraping against his blade. Another circled Frog, who met its attacks with disciplined, surgical strikes. Chrono moved instinctively, parrying, slashing, dodging a swipe that would have torn his side open. When the last of them dissolved into foul-smelling smoke, the chapel seemed to sigh, the air growing a shade lighter. Frog stepped to the altar and pressed against a panel, revealing a hidden stairwell plunging into darkness. "Down there," Frog said. "If Lean lives, she's below. But steel yourself, this place will not give her up willingly." The descent felt endless. The stone walls dripped with moisture, the stairs slick underfoot. Somewhere below, a voice sang, soft, mournful, and inhuman. They emerged into a cavern lit by torches that burned green. At the far end stood a man, tall, draped in a tattered purple robe, his smile too wide for his face. A bound woman knelt before him, her eyes defiant despite the ropes at her wrists. "Lean," Frog whispered. The robed man's smile widened. "Ah, the knight who failed as queen. And a stranger from nowhere." He raised a hand, and black fire coiled in his palm. "You cannot stop the work already begun." With that, the room erupted, shadow creatures bursting from the floor, the torches flaring. Chrono charged forward, his sword catching green flame, while Frog met the dark sorcerer's minions head-on. The battle raged until the sorcerer faltered, his form unraveling into a burst of shadow. The bound woman collapsed into Frog's arms, weak, but alive. I knew you'd come," she whispered. Frog bowed his head, voice thick. "I am sorry for my failure, my queen." Lean's eyes softened. "You did not fail. You returned." When they emerged from the forest, dawn was breaking, the storm finally spent. Yet as Chrono looked at Lean, a chill ran through him. This rescue meant Merle was safe, but also meant she had been replaced in the timeline. And somewhere, between the folds of time itself, she was still lost. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 4, Threads of Time. The gates of Guardia Castle opened as Frog led Queen Lean inside, the early light spilling across the cobblestones. The courtyard guards straightened at the sight of her, their tired faces breaking into relieved smiles. "Her Majesty has returned." Someone called, and the news rippled through the castle like fire through dry grass. Lean was swept away by a tide of attendants and advisors, leaving Chrono and Frog in the great hall. The knight stood silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the now empty doorway. "I have fulfilled my oath," Frog said at last, though his voice was hollow. "And yet, I feel no triumph." Before Chrono could reply, the air shimmered. Light gathered in the middle of the hall, swirling into a familiar blue-white gate. From it, a figure stumbled, Merle, alive, her pendant swinging wildly at her neck. She rushed to Chrono, throwing her arms around him. I thought I was gone forever," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes shone. Then she turned to Frog, who watched her with cautious disbelief. "Queen Lean?" he asked. Merle shook her head. "No, not really. My name's Nadia. Merle's just a nickname. I'm the Princess of Guardia." She hesitated, then added, "From 1,000 years in your future." Frog blinked slowly, the words turning in his mind like puzzle pieces that refused to fit. Then, "Your resemblance to the Queen nearly destroyed me," Merle finished, her smile wry. "When Queen Lean disappeared, history tried to fix itself by erasing me. You found her in time, literally." At that moment, footsteps pounded against the stone floor. Luca burst into the hall, her goggles askew, hair frizzed from static. "Chrono!" "Merle." She glanced at Frog. And giant talking frog. I think I know what's happening." She set down a heavy satchel of tools and sketches, spreading them on the nearest table. We've been jumping through time. Those strange gates, they're wormholes, may be caused by a massive distortion in space-time. The pendant seems to trigger them, probably because of its material's resonance frequency. Luca, Merle cut in gently, English. Luca sighed. You went back in time and nearly caused a paradox that erased you from existence. We fixed it, but if those gates are popping up randomly, it's not going to stop here. Frog's brow furrowed. And the cause? Luca's eyes darkened. I don't know yet. But I caught a glimpse of something while calibrating the gate I came through. A vision, a wasteland, nothing alive, and a date, the year 1999. Something called Lavos destroys everything. The word hung in the air like a curse. Merle shivered. If we can travel through time, maybe we can stop it. Frog adjusted his grip on his sword. If your quest will preserve the kingdom's future, I will aid you. That night, Chrono lay awake in the guest chambers. The fire burned low, shadows dancing across the walls. His mind replayed the whirlwind of the last 2 days, the fair, Merle, the gate, the war-torn past, and Luca's grim vision. Beyond the castle walls, the world slept, blissfully unaware that its very existence might already be unraveling. And somewhere, in some far-off era, Lavos waited. Asterisk Chrono Trigger, Chapter 5, Shadows of 2300 AD. The gate flared open like the mouth of a storm, pulling Chrono, Merle, and Luca into its spiraling light. This time, the sensation was different, heavier, as if they were sinking instead of flying. Shapes flickered past, rusted towers, burning skies, a blackened ocean. Then the pull stopped, and the three tumbled out into silence. They landed on cracked tile in what had once been a city square. The air was dry, stale, and carried the faint scent of rust and ash. Buildings hunched around them, their metal skeletons exposed, glass windows long since shattered. The sun was a pale smear behind a permanent haze, its warmth gone. Merle stood slowly, wrapping her arms around herself. It's so quiet. Luca knelt, running her gloved fingers over the cracked earth. No plant life. No wind patterns. Nothing's grown here in years. They moved cautiously through the ruins, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Here and there, machines twitched faintly, automated systems still alive after centuries, their blinking lights meaningless. Near the outskirts, they found a cluster of survivors huddled around a failing energy lamp. Faces gaunt, skin pale, eyes sunken, yet their expressions were sharp with suspicion as the strangers approached. Travelers, one rasped. We've seen none in years. Not since the northern dome went silent. Merle stepped forward. What happened here? When did it start? An old man lifted his gaze. The day of Lavos. Year 1999. The sky split. The earth burned. The lucky ones died quickly. Luca's throat tightened. So it's true, she whispered. The man leaned closer, voice low and hoarse. If you go north, to the information center, maybe you'll see it for yourselves. But why would you want to? They followed the directions through miles of broken terrain until they reached the sealed dome. Inside, the air was cold and thin. Screens flickered dimly in the dark. Luca coaxed the central terminal to life, her fingers flying over the dusty controls. The display bloomed with images, a thriving city under a blue sky. Then, without warning, a massive shape erupted from the earth, like a clawed demon breaking free from the planet's heart. It screamed, a sound so deep and wrong it rattled the bones. Fire rained from its body, sweeping across the land. Year, 1999 AD, the day of Lavos. The recording ended in static. Merle's voice was barely a whisper. We can change this, right? If we stop it in time? Luca stared at the dead screen, her voice trembling despite herself. Maybe. But to change the future, we'll have to fight a creature that destroyed the entire world. Chrono looked from one to the other. The fear in their eyes was real, but so was the resolve forming between them. Whatever Lavos was, it had to be stopped. And the first step would be finding when, and where, it had come from. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 6, The Machine with a Heart. The path to the northern factory was a gauntlet of broken highways and collapsed structures. Twisted steel reached out like skeletal hands from the rubble, and wind hissed through the hollowed frames of forgotten towers. Chrono led the way, his sword ready. Merle and Luca followed, their breaths visible in the cold, stagnant air. Somewhere ahead, an automated distress beacon pulsed faintly, the only sign of activity in this dead world. They found the beacon inside a massive underground complex, its walls scorched and its corridors littered with debris. Old conveyor belts lay silent under layers of dust. The air was thick with the scent of burnt circuitry. In the central chamber, something lay crumpled on the floor, a humanoid machine, its silver plating dented, one arm torn free. Luca knelt beside it, brushing away dust. It's a Series R66Y. I thought they were all destroyed after the war. She connected a cable from her satchel to a port on the machine's neck. Lights flickered along its torso, then steadied. Slowly, its head turned, eyes glowing with a warm amber light. Systems. Online, it said in a calm, resonant voice. It sat up, scanning each of them in turn. You are not hostile? Merle smiled. Not unless you give us a reason. The machine introduced itself, or rather, accepted the name Merle insisted on giving it, Robo. I was deactivated during an incursion by other units, Robo explained. Their programming was corrupted. They attacked humans instead of aiding them. I attempted to intervene. Luca frowned. Corruption on that scale doesn't just happen. Someone, or something, rewrote their directives. Robo stood, his frame towering over them. If you wish to reach the Proto-Dome and search for this gate you seek, I can guide you. My knowledge of the sector is comprehensive. Chrono nodded. Then let's move. The journey through the underground passages tested even Robo's strength. Hostile machines lurked in every shadow, their movements jerky and unnatural, eyes glowing the same sickly red that marked their corrupted programming. Chrono's blade flashed, Luca's pistol cracked, Merle's bow sang, but it was Robo's heavy arms that often broke through enemy ranks, his blows crushing through steel plating like rotted wood. Between fights, Robo walked in silence, his head tilted as if listening to something only he could hear. Finally, Merle asked, "Do you think about things? Not just follow orders?" Robo paused. I think. I wonder. I choose. He glanced at her, and for a moment, his amber eyes seemed almost human. Is that what you mean by being alive? Merle smiled softly. Yeah. That's exactly it. When they finally reached the Proto-Dome, a dormant gate shimmered faintly at the center. Luca examined it, her fingers twitching with anticipation. But before they could activate it, the room filled with a mechanical roar. A massive Guardian unit dropped from the ceiling, its limbs unfolding with lethal precision. Robo stepped forward. Stand back. This one is mine. And in that instant, the machine was not just an ally, he was a friend. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 7, The End of Time. The Guardian's metal frame loomed over them, its bolt casting long shadows across the Proto-Dome. Its central eye pulsed with crimson light, scanning for weaknesses. Destroy the bits first. Luca shouted, pointing to the smaller drones flanking it. They're feeding it power. Chrono leapt into motion, sword cleaving through the first bit in a spray of sparks. Merle's arrows shattered the second, its circuits hissing as it collapsed. Robo met the Guardian head-on, his heavy arms locking with its main chassis in a contest of raw strength. The Guardian roared, a sound like tearing metal, and drove Robo back a step. But with one final surge, Robo twisted the enemy's core assembly and tore it free. The great machine shuddered once, then fell still, its crimson eye dimming to black. With the danger gone, they approached the gate. It pulsed faintly, as if waiting for them. Luca adjusted her tools. This one feels different. Not just another jump to a random time. Merle touched the pendant. Only one way to find out. They stepped into the light together. When the gate released them, the first thing they noticed was the silence. Not the oppressive quiet of the ruined future, but something deeper, the silence of a place outside time itself. They stood on a small stone platform suspended in an endless darkness. Lampposts lined the edges, their glow steady but faint. An old man sat on a bench nearby, his back bent, his eyes half-lidded as if he'd been waiting centuries for someone to arrive. "Ah," he said with a thin smile, "more travelers lost on the road of time." He introduced himself simply as the keeper of the end of time. His words were slow, deliberate, each one weighted with meaning. "You've been using the gates without guidance," he said. "They are threads between moments, and too many threads can tangle. When 4 or more travelers enter a gate at once, time compensates, sends the extras here, to this crossroad." Merle glanced around. "So, we're outside of history?" The old man nodded. "Every era touches here, in its own way. You can rest, learn, and choose your next step." He gestured toward an arched door beyond the lampposts. "Before you continue, you'll need to master the flow of battle itself. Specchio, the master of war, waits within." Inside, the chamber was empty until the air shimmered and coalesced into a squat, round creature with a single horn. It bounced once and grinned. "I can look like anything, but I take the form your strength demands. You're all still green, so here I am." Specchio's training was exhausting, his strange magic searing through their muscles and minds. But when they emerged, each of them carried the spark of new power. Chrono's blade now sang with lightning, Merle's arrows shimmered with healing frost, and Luca's shots burned with controlled flame. Back on the platform, the old man watched them. "You seek to change the fate of the world. Then choose your next step carefully. The road is long, and Lavos is older than any of you can comprehend." Chrono's hand tightened on his sword. The others exchanged glances. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And somewhere in the web of time, Lavos waited, a shadow at the heart of history. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 8, The Earth Before Memory. The gate erupted in a swirl of gold and deep green, hurling them into a world alive with heat and noise. They landed on a sun-baked plain under a sky bluer than anything they'd seen, so vivid it almost hurt to look at. The air was thick with the scent of wild grass and flowering vines. Towering ferns swayed in the breeze, their fronds as big as sails, and the ground trembled faintly, as if the earth itself was breathing. Then came the roar. A massive reptilian shape burst from the treeline, a tyranno, scales glistening like molten bronze. Its jaws gnashed, teeth as long as daggers. Chrono's instincts took over. He drew his sword, motioning for Merle and Luca to spread out. Robo planted himself between them and the charging beast, servos whining as he braced for impact. The tyranno lunged, but an even wilder figure struck first. A woman with sun-bleached hair and a necklace of polished bones vaulted from a ridge, slamming a stone-tipped spear into the monster's flank. She moved with pure, fearless grace, her tanned muscles coiled with power. The tyranno shrieked, staggered, and fled into the forest. The woman turned to them, grinning wide. "You fight good. I am Isla, chief of Ioka tribe." Her voice carried the raw cadence of a language still finding its shape. She looked them over, eyes locking on Chrono. "You strong. You help fight reptites?" Over a roaring fire in the heart of the Ioka encampment, Isla explained. "Reptites rule land before time," she said, gesturing with her spear. "They think they win, kill humans. But Ioka strong. We fight." Luca exchanged a glance with Robo. "Reptites. So intelligent dinosaurs are in a power struggle with early humans?" Merle leaned closer to Isla. "Do you know anything about a falling star? Or a great fire from the sky?" Isla's expression darkened. "One night, sky burn red. Star fall, shake ground. Bad omen." She stared into the flames. "Isla thinks star bring change. Maybe bring end." The next day, the peace of the camp shattered. A reptite raiding party struck at dawn, their scaled warriors armored in bone and shell. Chrono's group joined the defense, steel against claw, lightning against tooth. In the chaos, a reptite chieftain locked eyes with them, his gaze cold and calculating. "You do not belong to this time," he hissed. "But Lavos will make all time one, in death." Then he vanished into the forest, leaving only the echo of his threat. That night, under the alien constellations, Chrono couldn't sleep. The air was thick with the smell of smoke from the day's battle. If Lavos had been here, if it had fallen here, then maybe its shadow had been hanging over the world since before humans could even dream. And that meant their fight was far older, and far more dangerous, than they had imagined. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 9, When the Sky Fell. The hunt began before dawn. The air in the Ioka village was thick with anticipation and the scent of crushed herbs. Warriors sharpened spears and fastened bone armor, their shadows flickering in the torchlight. Isla strode through them like a storm-given flesh, her spear in one hand, her other clenching Chrono's arm in a warrior's grip. "Today, reptites fall," she said. "We end their raids forever." Chrono nodded. He didn't need to understand every word, the fire in her eyes said enough. They moved out in a silent column, slipping through the lush green of the prehistoric jungle. The air was alive with sound, chirps, screeches, and the distant rumble of something massive moving just out of sight. The reptite stronghold lay within a volcanic basin, its jagged cliffs scarred by lava flows that glowed faintly in the distance. Stone watchtowers jutted from the ridges, manned by lean, scale-armored sentinels. When the first alarm call went up, a piercing, reptilian screech, Isla didn't wait. She broke into a sprint, leaping the first barricade with a roar. The battle was chaos. Chrono's sword flashed in arcs of lightning, Robo's fists smashed through bone-plated shields, Luca's fire bolts ignited the thatched roofs of enemy huts. Merle loosed arrow after arrow, each finding its mark in the melee. But then the ground trembled, and not from the volcano. The reptite chieftain emerged, towering over his kin, his scales a deep emerald shot through with black. His eyes glowed with the cold certainty of a predator. "You are insects," he hissed, voice like grinding stone. "But you will die with the rest when the true master comes." He raised a clawed hand toward the volcano's heart. The earth groaned, split, and from the sky came a sound that was not thunder. A blazing mass tore through the clouds, trailing fire like a wound in the heavens. The air burned hot and dry in an instant. Isla's eyes went wide. The star. It comes again. The fireball struck the far side of the basin with an impact that shook the world. Heat rolled over them, carrying the stench of scorched earth. The reptites wailed in terror, not of the humans, but of what they knew was inside that falling star. The basin's floor split open, and from the wound in the earth, something moved. It was too large to fully see, only ridges of jagged shell and the faint, horrible ripple of something alive beneath. Even Chrono, sword in hand, felt his breath catch. This wasn't an enemy to fight. This was a force of nature, a god of destruction. The reptite chieftain's voice rose in reverence. "Lavos. The end of your time begins." The world blurred. The ground cracked and gave way, and Chrono felt himself falling, not into lava, not into darkness, but into the twisting light of another gate. When he hit the ground, it was cold, metallic, and humming with power. Merle and Luca were gone. Robo was gone. Isla was gone. He was alone. And somewhere in the dark, a voice whispered, "You cannot run from what was always meant to be." Chrono Trigger, Chapter 10, The Ocean Palace. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of salt water as Chrono slowly opened his eyes. Above him, the sky was a brilliant turquoise, streaked with cotton-white clouds. He found himself lying on soft, polished stone steps that led into a breathtaking city floating upon the ocean. Towers of ivory and crystal stretched toward the heavens, their spires shimmering in the sunlight. Gardens bloomed with flowers of colors he had never seen, their petals glowing faintly even in daylight. The gentle hum of music and laughter drifted on the breeze, a stark contrast to the darkness still clinging to his mind. A group of people in flowing robes approached him, their faces serene but their eyes sharp and curious. A young woman stepped forward, her hair a cascade of gold, her smile both kind and distant. "Welcome to Zeal, traveler," she said. "I am Scala, princess of this realm. You are far from home." Chrono struggled to rise, his muscles weak but his spirit alert. I don't know how I got here. One moment I was falling, and then." Scala nodded, as if understanding more than he said. "The gates of time are mysterious. Few know how to master them. But in Zeal, we have unlocked many secrets, the power of magic, and the ability to command the very forces of nature." She led him through the city, past marketplaces filled with exotic goods and scholars debating arcane subjects. Statues of ancient heroes stood alongside fountains that glowed with ethereal light. Yet beneath the beauty, Chrono sensed a tension, a fragile hope clinging to grandeur. At the heart of Zeal stood the Ocean Palace, a soaring structure perched on the water like a jewel. It was said to be the source of the kingdom's power, but also the place where dark secrets were buried. As Chrono learned more from Scala, a shadow crossed her face. "Our people's ambition is both our strength and our curse. The power we wield comes from a creature beneath the earth, Lavos. It lies dormant, feeding upon the planet's energy." His heart clenched. Lavos. That name again. "Yes," Scala whispered. "The ancients feared it. Some say it was summoned here by those who sought to control it. But it is a force beyond control, and it will awaken." That night, as stars shimmered over the endless ocean, Chrono gazed out from the palace's highest balcony. Somewhere in the deep, he could feel a pulse, faint but steady, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The stakes were clearer than ever. To save all of time, they would have to face a power older than history and fight against a destiny that seemed written in the stars. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 11, The Fall of Zeal. The halls of the Ocean Palace glittered with crystal chandeliers and tapestries that told stories of gods and heroes. Yet beneath the grandeur, whispers of doubt echoed like a gathering storm. Scala moved through the corridors with grace, but her eyes betrayed a weariness no crown could hide. "The power we borrow from Lavos is a double-edged sword," she confided to Chrono. "The more we take, the closer we draw its wrath." At the council chamber, the ruling sages debated fiercely. The high priest Zeal, once a man of wisdom, now radiated obsession. "We must awaken Lavos fully," he declared, voice cold as stone. "Only by harnessing its power can Zeal ascend beyond mortality." Frog, who had arrived through a mysterious gate, growled in protest. "You gamble with the fate of all worlds. Your ambition blinds you." As tensions flared, the ground trembled. The ocean roared, waves crashing violently against the palace's foundations. From the deep came a sound unlike any other, a low, resonant growl that shook the very air. Lavos had stirred. The palace shook violently as beams of fiery energy burst from the creature's maw, tearing through pillars and throwing courtiers into chaos. Chrono, Luca, Merly, and Frog fought desperately to hold back the destruction. Robo's mechanical strength was pushed to its limit as he shielded a crumbling bridge from falling debris. Scala, tears streaming, chanted an ancient spell to contain the chaos. But the power was overwhelming. In a final, desperate act, Scala summoned the last of her strength to open a gate, a portal to safety and hope. "Go!" she urged the others. "Stop Lavos. No matter the cost." Chrono hesitated, catching her gaze. "We will." Then, one by one, they leapt into the gate, leaving behind the burning remnants of Zeal and a world forever changed. As they vanished, the Ocean Palace collapsed into the sea, swallowed by waves and fire. The pulse of Lavos echoed through the void, a reminder that their fight was far from over. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 12, The Gathering Storm. The castle halls of Guardia buzzed with urgency. Word of Zeal's destruction had spread, carried by strange travelers and whispers of time itself unraveling. Chrono, Merly, Luca, Frog, and Robo gathered in the war room, maps and glowing artifacts strewn across heavy oak tables. The weight of what lay ahead pressed on them like a storm cloud. Luca's fingers traced the lines of energy pulsing from the gate they'd last used. Lavos's emergence is near, closer than any of us expected. The distortions we're seeing in time are just the beginning. Frog's voice was steady but grim. We face not just a creature, but a force that warps reality. Our strength alone won't be enough. Merle's gaze met Chrono's. Then we fight, for everyone who's ever lived, and for those who never will. Outside, the sky darkened. Thunder rolled across the horizon, as if the world itself sensed the coming reckoning. The group steeled themselves. Each carried not only weapons but the hopes of countless eras. The final confrontation awaited beneath the planet's surface, a realm of alien rock and glowing veins of energy. Together, they would descend into the heart of Lavas's lair, to face the nightmare that had haunted history and to fight for the future of all time. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 13. Into the abyss. The air grew thick as they approached the massive fissure yawning at the Earth's core, glowing with eerie purple and crimson light. The ground beneath them hummed with unnatural energy, a deep pulse like a heartbeat, but faster, irregular, and menacing. "Stay close," Luca warned, eyes scanning the shifting shadows. "This place. It's alive." Robo's mechanical footsteps echoed with heavy resolve. Frog's sword gleamed faintly, charged with ancient magic. Merle's bow was steady, and Chrono's grip tightened on his blade, heart pounding with both fear and determination. Descending into the cavern, they faced monstrous creatures born from the planet's corruption, twisted forms that lurched from walls, clawing with jagged limbs and eyes glowing like embers. Each step was a battle, every breath stolen by the suffocating heat and choking miasma. Their weapons sang, fire clashed with claw, steel rang against bone. The cavern pulsed, and the deeper they went, the louder the heartbeat grew. At last, they reached the core chamber, a cavern vast beyond measure, walls shimmering with crystalline veins of power. And there, coiled and thrashing in agony and rage, lay Lavos. Its colossal, armored body writhed, tentacles lashing, a monstrous maw lined with spikes dripping with molten energy. The world seemed to tremble under its presence, the air crackling with raw destruction. "This is it," Chrono whispered. With no more hesitation, they charged, each wielding their hard-won power. Luca's flames roared, Merle's arrows pierced with light, Frog's sword struck with righteous fury, Robo's fists smashed with relentless force, and Chrono's blade blazed with lightning. The battle was relentless, a titanic clash of wills and might against the ancient terror. Wounds deepened and strength waned, but the courage they shared fueled every strike. Finally, with a final, unified effort, Chrono plunged his sword deep into Lavas's core. The beast let out a deafening roar, then stilled. The cavern trembled, collapsing around them as time itself seemed to ripple and heal. Breathless, battered, but victorious, they emerged into the light of a restored world. Chrono Trigger, Chapter 14. A new dawn. The world breathed again. The sky, once shadowed by Lavas's dark influence, stretched wide and blue, clouds drifting lazily as if waking from a long nightmare. Chrono stood atop a hill overlooking Guardia Castle, the morning sun warming his face. Around him, his friends gathered, Merle's laughter bright as birdsong, Luca's thoughtful smile, Frog's steady gaze, and Robo's gentle mechanical hum. They had faced impossible odds, seen history's darkest moments, and come through with hope intact. But the journey had changed them all, scars hidden beneath smiles, memories that would never fade. Merle stepped beside Chrono, her hand finding his. "We saved the future," she said softly. "But more than that, we saved each other." Frog knelt by the river, watching its clear waters flow free again. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones within. Luca adjusted her goggles, eyes shining with unspoken questions. "There's still so much we don't know about time. But for now, this is peace." As they looked toward the horizon, a gentle breeze carried the promise of new adventures, stories yet to be told, and moments yet to be lived. Because even in a world shaped by time's endless flow, friendship and courage remain eternal. Chrono Trigger, sequel teaser. The ripple in the stream. The sun had set, and twilight draped the land in a violet glow. Chrono stood alone near the shimmering waters of a quiet lake, the gentle lapping of waves reflecting stars like scattered jewels. Peace had returned to the world, but the calm was fragile, a thin ripple on an endless stream. A soft hum broke the silence. At first, Chrono thought it was the wind. But the sound grew louder, pulsing with a strange energy. From the surface of the water, a faint, shimmering portal flickered, unlike any gate he had seen before. It twisted and warped, colors swirling unpredictably. Chrono stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Time is not done with us," a distant voice whispered, barely audible, yet filled with power. Suddenly, the portal surged upward, pulling Chrono forward in a whirl of light and shadow. When the world settled, he found himself in a strange new land, where memories tangled and realities overlapped. Somewhere beyond the flow of time, a new journey awaited.